guys, it's Strawberry Elli here and welcome back to another video. Thank you so much for tuning in into my channel. If you're not subscribed yet, please do so. Hit that little red subscribe button down below so you don't miss out on any of my awesome weekly videos. I post videos about minimalism, traveling and also veganism. In today's video, I want to share with you my top tips how to save money while you're traveling, maybe even backpacking, because we all want to save money, we all want to watch our budget. So I think I have a few helpful tips for you and say, let's get started with the video. One thing I actually want to say before I start with my tips, and that is regardless to your credit cards or debit cards, and I had to do that before I started traveling. I had to sort out everything with my bank accounts and my bank. I had to talk to them that I'm going to travel overseas, so they kind of make sure that I can use my credit card in different countries. And I would also suggest taking out money from an ATM rather than exchanging money, because the exchange rate sometimes is not that good and your bank might be even better. So check beforehand how much your bank charges you when you take out money in different countries, and also check wherever you go to what the current exchange rate is, so you get the best deal and you get the best for your money. My first tip for you guys is that you watch your expenses, and you can do that in different ways, but I personally like to keep a small journal with me, or I just put everything into my calendar and I just write everything down what I spend in a day. You can make a list, just write everything down what you spend that day. That can be on food, on your room, on every activities you do, on rent, on your bike or transport or anything like that, and you put it all into a list so you keep track on what you're spending. Maybe even put yourself on a budget, how much you actually want to spend in that day, in that week. So don't be too strict on yourself, be a bit loose the first days and see how much you have to spend, and then I think you will easily go into a flow of just spending a certain amount each day. So you don't have to spend too much, but you don't have to cramp in the money. You still enjoy your time and spend as much as you think you need. Once you figured out how much you actually spend in a day, I would say that you only carry that much cash with you as well, because that way you don't feel like you have to spend that money you have in your pocket. For example, you go out and you spend money on food or when you do extra activities, and you lose kind of track of how much you're spending. So I would say put as much money as you think you spend in a day, maybe a little bit of extra money. You never know what happens, so you keep better track on what you're actually spending, so you can just budget your money throughout your week and you don't just magically lose money because you just mindlessly spend it on things you don't really need. And that can help you to watch your budget and not spend too much for the following days. So with that being said, I share with you how I watch my budget and how I keep track on it. And now I want to share with you my top 5 tips on how to save money when you're traveling. So my first tip is definitely eat locally. Buy your fruits and vegetables at the local markets. There can be maybe a farmer's market or just a local market. Just look around and see where you find one of these, because I love to shop at markets and I love to support local businesses, and most of the time the fruits and vegetables are much cheaper than in the supermarket. And you can also get a lot of street foods, especially here in Thailand or in other Southeast Asian countries. You can buy a lot of street food. They always have rice or potatoes. And most of the time, even in supermarkets, you can get already prepared stuff if you don't have a kitchen. But if you watch my Minimalist Life Hacks Travel Edition, you know that I really value having a kitchen wherever place I'm going to, so I can prepare my own food. And that is definitely a tip how you can save money. You might get your hands on a rice cooker. They're really inexpensive. Rice is really abundant here, so you can just pick up a big bag of rice and you just cook that, and then you can eat that throughout the week, and you definitely save money with that. Also just cheap local vegetables and potatoes. I think they're kind of cheap in almost every country, and I love to eat just locally grown, most of the time also seasonal. That tends to be a lot cheaper as well. Fruit and veggies, compare different prices and know what is best for you. And I don't say that you can't eat out. Just go out to local restaurants. For example, here in Thailand, there's so many Thai restaurants and the food that tends to be really cheap. Just stay away from Western places most of the time when you go somewhere, because they tend to be a lot more expensive. When I travel to a different country, I want to experience the local food much more than having the food I get at home. So going to local restaurants, going to local markets help you to save money and also help you to experience the culture much more. My second tip is travel like the locals. So what I mean by that is that you walk to places, or that you rent a bike, maybe even for a month, you get a monthly deal for that, or traveling by bus or by train, depending on how far you want to travel. I also like to use Uber once in a while, depending on where you're at, but in Southeast Asia and Asia, Uber tends to be a bit cheaper than in the US, for example, and definitely a lot cheaper than normal taxis. So I would definitely stay away from using taxis because they tend to rip you off sometimes. Biking, walking, taking the bus, and also when you travel to a different country, compare different prices maybe on Skyscanner, and consider maybe even traveling with a train that might be even cheaper than flying. My next point is regarding to accommodations. So whenever you get to a place, obviously you rent something or you stay somewhere. You can stay in a guest house or in a hostel. They tend to be really cheap. We, for example, like to get just a monthly deal, monthly rental, and you get definitely a better deal than staying in expensive hotels. Staying in an apartment is definitely beneficial. A lot of the times you have your own space, you have an extra kitchen maybe even to prepare your own food. That place maybe offer like different things like a gym or pool, or where you can do your laundry at. And you also, as I said, experience more to live like the locals, because in this apartment complex, for example, a lot of Thai people live here and they live here on a daily basis. That is definitely an experience. And also, just as I said, staying in guest house or hostels. You could also consider house sitting depending on what country you're at and if that is possible for you and if that is an option. And also you can just volunteer. Some people stay at farms and they work there and they automatically stay there and they get food there. Everyone has different preferences on how they want to travel and how they like to stay at different places. So just think of that ahead and pick the option that saves you the most money and also just makes you experience the most and helps you to have the best time you possibly can have. So let's say we have everything covered. We know where we get our food from and we also know where we're staying at. But now we actually want to do things. You want to go out and experience. What I suggest now is, with saving money and when you're on a budget, is that you do free activities. Of course, that doesn't have to be boring at all. Just look around in your area, depending on what you enjoy doing. For example, me, I like to go out in nature. I love hiking and going on walks or just biking around the city. And that way I don't have to spend money and I just see a lot from the culture. And that is personally what I enjoy the most. And also you can go to free museums. Just look around and see if that's available in the city you're staying at. Also just different sport activities. Maybe you go swimming or you go to the beach or just things like that. Spending as much time outside, I think, is that what I value the most. That way I see a lot, so I love to do that, and that is free, so you don't have to spend any money. I'd say just stay away from expensive tourist places where you have to spend a lot of money. But I don't want to hold you back on spending money on activities you actually value doing. Everyone values their money differently. So if you enjoy going to a temple or just to a museum or things like that, then just spend that money, because at the end you value that experience a lot and that is where you want to spend your money on. When you go to expensive tourist places, that you tend to spend money on souvenirs. I don't like to spend money on things I don't need. At the end of the day, I have to carry them around me in my backpack, and that is just extra weight I don't want to carry around with me. So I tend to not buy a lot of things when I'm traveling. If I really need something, I pick it up. I like to take pictures or film videos, and that way I take a little piece of that culture or that experience with me and I just have that in my heart, and I just have the experience in general. And I don't need to buy a physical thing to remember the experience I had there. So everyone is different with that, but I don't like to pick up a lot of tourist things. That way I don't have to spend extra money and I don't have to carry it at the end in my backpack. So guys, that's actually it with my top 5 tips on how to save money while you're on a budget, while you're traveling, maybe even backpacking. And one more thing I want to address at the end is I like to stay in places longer term. That way I can experience much more, I can get settled in, I get into a routine, and that way you save money instead of moving around a lot and figuring out where to stay and where you can get the best food from. So I like to stay in one place for a longer period of time. So guys, that was definitely it now. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you enjoyed my tips. If you have any more tips on how to save money while you're traveling, please share them in the comments below. I would love to read your comments, and other people would benefit from that as well, I think. Thank you so much for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed this video, and follow me on my social media platforms so you can follow me through my travels and see what I'm up to. And I see you in my next video. Have a beautiful day, guys. Bye.